Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming back to our event today. Um, the speaker we're going to have today is going to give us some really astounding knowledge that many of you probably never heard before. You may have heard things about it, referring to birth certificates and how the birth certificates puts us into a straw man capacity where we're actually a corporation. You've probably heard things about this before, but we're going to go right to the core of it today with Xavier. And Xavier is an amazing man. I've known him for a few months now. He is he's a county organizer for the state assembly in his county, and he is also the state recording secretary for the state assembly of Florida. And he does a fantastic job. He helped me with my paperwork to remove myself as a U.S. citizen and become a state citizen, or actually a state national of Indiana, the state that I was born in, residing in the state of Florida, the Republic of Florida. So this is all about jurisdiction. It's all about sovereignty. It's about who we really are. And it's how we've been trapped in the Matrix. The movie The Matrix is not made up. It's a pretty accurate prediction, or not even a prediction. It's a pretty accurate picture of what the case actually is. And I think you'll want to go back and watch The Matrix after you hear this presentation by Xavier. So Xavier, thank you so much for being with us today. I can't wait for you to lay this all out for people so they understand the core of what makes us owned by these entities, the Vatican, the Crown, and all of that. Xavier is going to put it all together for you. So Xavier, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start explaining how this all works.
Thank you very much, Clyde. First of all, I wanted to go over a little bit of defining, right? And then we'll go into the history. So first of all, if you go to the CDC manual on the third page, you will see registration requirements. When a delivery results in a live birth, a birth certificate must be filed, even if the infant lives for only a very short period of time. In most states, a live birth is defined as the complete expulsion or extraction from its mother of a product of human conception, irrespective of the duration of pregnancy, which, after such expulsion or extraction, breathes or shows any other evidence of life, such as beating of the heart, pulsation of the umbilical cord, or definite movement of voluntary muscles, whether or not the umbilical cord has been cut or the placenta is attached. A fetal death report is filed when a delivery results in a fetus that shows no evidence of life after it is entirely outside the mother. This would be an infant that has no heartbeat, respiration, voluntary movement of muscles, or any other evidence of life. Here in this short paragraph, we find out that any product of human conception that is fully expelled from the mother's womb, right, can be considered essentially a person. So think about it. The extracellular tissue, the placenta, can be a person, can be a fetus. Remember, the pulsation of the umbilical cord is still going on when the placenta comes out, even when you cut it. The extracellular tissues are still alive and can show it. So as soon as they die, guess what they become?
Corporation.
An infant decedent trust. Now, the interesting thing is what happens in the hospital. The mother, right, once she gives birth, right, the child is given to her. The placenta is immediately taken away, and so are the extracellular tissues. Does the mother go back and claim her placenta before she leaves the hospital? Does she say, "Oh, I want the placenta. I want the extracellular material"? No, it's considered waste. Not so for the doctor, though. The doctor considers it abandoned property. And since it is abandoned, the doctor claims it for the state.
State.
Basically, you could say, as a warrant officer, because the hospitals and the churches are under the state. So, that being the case, let's go into a little bit of the history of it. So think about the placenta and the extracellular material kind of as your evil twin brother, okay? He's the debt slave. He's the dead one, okay? Instead of giving your name to you, they stole the name that was written by your parents, and they fooled your parents into giving notice as agents, okay, that that dead thing has your name in all caps.
In all caps.
Remember, when it came out, it was living. So most, I would say in many states at least, they do give record in upper and lower cases, meaning the regular way of spelling in English, that a birth happened, a birth took place. And they're referring to that abandoned thing, okay? They're not referring to you, ever, okay? Actually, there's no record that you were ever even in the hospital. The live birth record is basically of the product of conception, okay? And the next thing you know, when you get the small version of the birth certificate, it's in all caps. All caps is a decedent trust. That's how you say that the thing is dead, okay? And remember in this paragraph here that I showed, the fetal death report happens when there's no heartbeat, etc. So in a few hours, there is no heartbeat, no pulsation in the placenta or the extracellular material. So with that in mind, let's go into some of the history of the Sestake Trust.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, any Google search.
By the way, I have to ask, if I could just ask quick, does a doctor know what he's doing?
A doctor would have to know what he's doing because he has to follow all of this. So definitely he would be acting as a warrant officer, so he would know what he's doing. Essentially, they're filing your placenta, literally filing your placenta.
Yes. Okay. And then that all cap name that's on your birth certificate, that's the corporation, that's the dead corpse of your placenta.
And the evil twin brother.
That's the evil twin brother, and that's where that full all cap name shows up on what else? Your driver's license, right? Your social security card.
Basically, it's used from then on. Anything the state uses for you is not you, it's rather that evil twin brother. But I just wanted to give one disclosure. Most of this information I have taken from Curtis Kallenbach, okay? Curtis Kallenbach has done amazing research on this issue, and it was brought to my attention precisely by Curtis Kallenbach. So I want to give all the credit for this to Curtis Kallenbach with regards to the CDC, to the understanding of what's going on in the hospital, to the filing of the placenta, to the all caps name used for the infant decedent death trust, okay? So all that comes from the research of Curtis Kallenbach. So I really urge everyone to read his work, his research, because it's invaluable to understanding this whole situation.
Okay, let's go on now into where this all leads us in terms of our real ownership and who's in control of this whole scam.
Exactly. Let's speak about the history of trust. And I'm really going to just read it because it's very powerful. Now, these are not my words, okay? You could find this history on one-heaven.org/home.asp, okay?
Right.
So the history of trust. The first trust of the world, Unum Sanctum, is one of the most frightening documents of history, and the one most quoted as the primary document of the popes claiming their global power. It is an express trust deed. The last line reads, "Furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature be subject to the Roman pontiff." It is not only the first trust deed in history, but also the largest trust ever conceived, as it claims the whole planet and everything on it conveyed in trust. Now, the Triple Crown Ball, aka the Papal Tiara, the Triregnum. In 1302, Pope Boniface issued his infamous papal bull, Unum Sanctum, the first express trust. He claimed control over the whole planet, which made him king of the world. In celebration, he commissioned a golden-plated headdress in the shape of a pine cone with an elaborate crown at its base. The pine cone is an ancient symbol of fertility and one traditionally associated with Baal, as well as the cult of Sibyl. It also represents the pineal gland in the center of our brain, crystalline in nature, which allows us access to source, hence the 13-foot tall pine cone in Vatican Square. Think about why the pontiffs would idolize a pine cone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the first crown of crown land. St. Boniface VIII was the first leader in history to create the concept of a trust, but the first testamentary trust, through a deed and will, creating a deceased estate, I should say, was created by Pope Nicholas V in 1455 through the papal bull Romanus Pontifex. This is only one of 3 papal bulls to include the line with the incipit "for a perpetual remembrance." This bull had the effect of conveying the right of use of the land as real property from the express trust Unum Sanctum to the control of the Roman pontiff and his successors in perpetuity. Hence, all land is claimed as crown land. This first crown is represented by the first Sestakevi trust. Created when a child is born, it deprives us of all beneficial entitlements and rights on the land. So that's the first crown, no property.
So we really don't own property.
According to them, we don't.
Right.
Okay. The second crown of the Commonwealth. The second crown was created in 1481 with the papal bull Aeterni Regis, meaning eternal crown, by Sixtus IV, being only the second of 3 papal bulls as deeds of testamentary trust. This papal bull created the crown of Aragon, later known as the crown of Spain, and is the highest sovereign and highest steward of all Roman slaves subject to the rule of the Roman pontiff. Spain lost the crown in 1604 when it was granted to King James I of England by Pope Paul V. After the successful passage of the Union of Crowns, or the Commonwealth, in 1605, after the false flag operation of the Gunpowder Plot, the crown was finally lost by England in 1975, when it was returned to Spain and King Carlos I, where it remains to this day. This second crown is represented by the second Sestakevi trust, created when a child is born and by the sale of the birth certificate as a bond to the private central bank of the nation, depriving us of ownership of our flesh and condemning us to perpetual servitude as a Roman person or slave. So
this is
that
where
basically means you
this
don't
is
own your
where
own body.
and this is where the central banks are in collusion with the Catholic Church as part of this whole
Right.
matrix that they've
I,
created.
I would emphasize not the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So then there's the third crown. The third crown of the ecclesiastical see. The third crown was created in 1537 by Paul III through the papal bull Convocation, also meant to open the Council of Trent. It is the third and final testamentary deed and will of the testamentary trust, set up for the claiming of all lost souls, lost to the sea. The Venetians assisted in the creation of the first Sestacate Act of 1540 to use this papal bull as the basis of ecclesiastical authority of Henry VIII. This crown was secretly granted to England in the collection and reaping of lost souls. The crown was lost in 1816 due to the deliberate bankruptcy of England and granted to the Temple Bar, which became known as the Crown Bar, or simply the Crown. The bar associations have since been responsible for administering the reaping of souls of the lost and damned, including the registration and collection of baptismal certificates representing the souls collected by the Vatican and stored in its vaults. This third crown is represented by the third Sestacate Trust, created when a child is baptized. It is the parent's grant of the baptismal certificate titled to the soul to the church or registrar. Thus, without legal title over one's own soul, we will be denied legal standing and will be treated as things, cargo without souls, upon which the bar is now legally able to enforce maritime law. Okay?
Wow.
So basically, they say through the first crown, they own your property.
Mm-hmm.
Through the second crown, they own your body. Through the third crown, they own your soul. In other words,
And the enforcers are the bar attorneys through the crown. And it's all tied in. The crown and the bar are tied in.
Right. Well, they're properly speaking, can you call them enforcers, or rather they use their lackeys, basically the sheriffs, the Leos, etc., to be their enforcers.
Right.
Because the court is private. Mm-hmm. The people in the court are really just juggling the trusts. They can't be trustee and beneficiary at the same time. So the ones that know this fraud can then call them out on it. So that's basically what it's getting down to and it's boiling to. Understand that by Roman law, the maxim that says fraud vitiates everything it touches. So again, you call out the fraud, it is dissolved ab initio from the very beginning. Okay. So that's one thing to take into account. Why not, first of all, tell them that this is fraud with regards to your birth certificate, that they cannot claim your property, that they cannot claim your body for obvious reasons. It's not theirs. It's your unique DNA. Hence, what do we do in the assembly to help you do that? You do paperwork that basically declares you on the land and soil. You're no longer presumed to be a British subject under the crown.
Or a dead corpse floating at sea, which is...
Or a dead corpse, because now you're under land law. Mm-hmm. So therefore, by expatriating from the sea and reconveying yourself onto the land, and then taking all your trade names and your business names and domiciling them on the state that you want, as well as canceling all prior powers of attorney, claiming paramount claim on your DNA,
Right.
and also doing the mandatory notice of the Foreign Sovereigns Immunity Act, basically you are absolutely giving notice that this is all fraud.
Right. And once you've done that, you've done all that as you've helped me do, then you will.
Then you basically can exercise your God-given rights under the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? So you're guaranteed by your Creator life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You made no contract with them. You were a baby. How could you? It's absolutely unconscionable what they did. Your parents were led by semantic deceit. It's unlawful conversion. They never were disclosed of this fraud. So it is absolutely invalid as soon as you raise your hand and say, hey, this is fraud.
Okay? Is this worldwide?
This is worldwide.
What
and
about
this could
like
be applied in
a country
any
like
court.
Russia? Do they do the same thing to Russian babies?
Well, obviously, think of the Stalinists.
Yeah.
Although they say recently Putin basically proclaimed his people alive. So I don't know how true it is. I haven't been able to investigate it.
I've
but
heard that.
that
Yeah.
seems to be the case. So if so, then it's just
That
up
must
to the
be why
people
the
in
deep
Russia.
state. That may be why the deep state hates him so much.
It could very well be.
I think they
Now,
hate him as much as they hate Trump.
more than likely.
Maybe more. Yeah. Okay.
Again, yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Now, another thing that is very much here is the case of going and showing this to your churches. I do not think many priests or ministers are aware of this third crown. I do not think that they willfully do it, but that cannot be said about the bishops. You could look up canon law, and it's very specific on how to write up these certificates. And they're not doing it that way, surprisingly enough. So why not? Call them on it. Tell them. And then write to Rome and say that this was done in fraud, right? That your parents were not disclosed about what the baptismal certificate meant, that there should never have been certificate. Certificate, by the way, is ownership in. So whoever gets that certificate has ownership in, guess what?
You.
Your soul.
So,
That's what the baptism is, right?
mhm.
So
So
remember,
that gets into the air jurisdiction, which the Vatican has kept for themselves.
right. And I wanted to make another disclosure here. We're not talking about the faithful Catholics, okay? Faithful Catholics don't know this. This is purely hidden on the Roman municipal side, the Holy Roman Empire side, the one that's never taught to Catholics in school, the one that's speedily raced over in history, in church history, okay? So we're talking about the temporal power here, exercised by the Roman pontiff as opposed to the Pope, okay? So that's something to take into account. We don't hold believers in the Catholic faith responsible for this. We hold deceitful infiltrators that have, throughout history, been invading the Vatican. We hold them responsible. They're not Catholics by their very beliefs. How can anyone own a soul? How can anyone own other people's bodies?
Well, you mentioned at the very beginning of this Baal, so that these are really worshipers of Baal. They're
Satan,
not worshipers of God, and
right.
And so there must be, like, within the Catholic Church itself in the hierarchy, two
churches,
churches
essentially
fighting, and this Cardinal or
Vigano
Archbishop Vigano.
brought it up.
I actually been trying to get a hold of him. I want to have him on this summit. So I've made some steps towards trying to get a hold of him. The people that I've talked to have actually interviewed him, and they said it's very difficult to get a hold of him. He's probably in danger for the exposures that he's
Right.
put out there in the last few months, the
And he
last
said
year.
there was a dark church, a shadowy church.
Right, right. Well, he was the one who was primarily responsible for the exposure of all the pedophilia of all the priests worldwide.
Exactly.
And so he's definitely one of the good guys.
Yep.
You know.
Him, Cardinal Burke too, and a few others. Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that out, so our audience doesn't understand we're against all Catholics here, or we're trying to in any way say that the Catholic religion is evil. It's this group within, and it's as you said, the Roman part of this that
Right.
goes back to the worship of Baal, and the people that are working with him, and they're working with the cabal of central bankers.
Right.
We're also in the same kind of religious or spiritual realm that they are. And so
Exactly.
now what you've exposed here, Xavier, is amazing. I hope people will listen and re-listen to this over and over again, and search out some of these source documents that you were reading from. Can you give people the website again of how they find those source documents you were reading from?
Absolutely. Well, the first one is the CDC manual, right? Birth manual, which is https://www.cdc.gov/MISC//birth.pdf. That
Okay,
is
well, we'll
on the
get that out to people somewhere where they can actually see that. But when you're saying CDC, we're talking about the Centers for Disease Control of the
exactly.
United States government, that where this definition of what happens at the birth takes place. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, a lot of us that are concerned about vaccines and other practices of the pharmaceutical industries are starting to realize the deep evil within the CDC. So if anything shows it, what you've just read, because they're absolutely liable for the fraud that's taking place here for every human being in this planet, probably, that's born, turning us into a corporation, a corpse floating at sea, and throwing us all into the admiralty jurisdiction instead of the land jurisdiction, which is where the common law is. And that's what we want to get back to. And once you get back to becoming an American state national, then you are back in the land jurisdiction where the common law is, where there's really only two laws. And those laws are do all that you agree to do, right? And then do no harm to another, do not encroach on the rights or property of another. Those are really the only two laws that we need to have.
Yep.
And then if you
peace.
break one of those laws, it's restitution. In other words, you have to restore the loss that you've created for the other person. Not have the other person pay to put you in jail somewhere with taxes for the rest of their life, which is totally absurd. Our whole criminal justice system is completely out of whack. And we're putting people in prisons that haven't even harmed another human being. A lot of people are in prison for putting a substance in their body that our laws say that they can't put in, or for breaking some state statute or regulation that you haven't harmed anyone. Tim Turner, who started the original Restore the Republic movement about 12, 15 years ago, has been rotting in prison ever since. He's dying in prison. He's never harmed another human being on this planet. He's a political prisoner. So, these are kind of things that we need to resolve, and people need to understand what's really going on. And we've gone deep today. So, I think that what we've done today is, for a lot of people, maybe pulled away with the curtain, and seen the wizard behind the curtain. And it's amazing. Do you have anything else that you could add or tell people about what they should do, and what steps they can take to get themselves free of this?
Yes. For those that are in any of the 50 states, especially in Florida, remember the Roman maxim: as a thing is bound, it must be unbound. Okay. So because of this, we have to undo the fraud in the reversed way it was done. So essentially, that is why you have to do the paperwork. That's why we call it papering up. And it's important to paper up because you have to unbind this fraud from the beginning. So it is important that people understand that it is necessary to paper up. And one way they could do that is by getting in touch with their state recorders, okay, which you can do so through the American States Assembly.net. And there you can see all that you need to do in order to get in touch with your state coordinator, and he could get you in touch with your state recorders to explain the process and to bring you through the process and back onto the land so that you can take up the noble work of reconstruction.
So it's American States, make American States plural assembly.net.
.net, right.
Okay, so you go to americanstatesassembly.net, and then when you go on there, you'll see there's a portion there where it says state coordinators, right? And you click on that and you see this map, and then you click on that and then you see all 50 state coordinators and their email addresses. So you email your state assembly coordinator that way, and you can then ask them to put you in touch with the state recorder, and they'll start helping you with your paperwork so you can unbind yourself and be able to get back on the land jurisdiction. And really, I think, a lot of people listening to this today are people that are very concerned about the direction our country has gone, concerned about the fraud in our last election, and want to take our country back. But, you really, I have to tell you this because I've wasted my time for many years trying to get the country back, the government back, but I'm working in the wrong jurisdiction. I've been working under a corporate government put in place in 1871 by the Vatican and the British Crown. And it's not the original republic. We need to be working in the original republic, the republic on the land jurisdiction. And that's where we need to be rebuilding. That's where we all need to be working together to restore our country, right?
Absolutely. And also, I would add to that, to remember, they're able to do this because they're confusing you with two citizens. Mm-hmm. They're confusing you either as a Roman municipal citizen, hence what they're doing in the hospitals, but also on the other side as a British subject.
Right.
So in either way, you're not being recognized as an actual American. Mm-hmm. And again, we can go deep into that as well another time, but essentially you want to be recognized for what you are, a living, breathing American.
Right. And you're never going to get anywhere in a court in this country, because those courts are under those jurisdictions. The judges are working for those corporations. When you go in there and you say, oh, well, I have Second Amendment rights, it's a gun issue, they don't care, because they're not operating with the Constitution you're talking about.
Right. Remember, everybody there is dead. Right. So if you enter there, you're saying you're dead. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the dead have no voice. They can't speak. So therefore, they need representation.
Right.
The attorney is representing you basically switching between the beneficiary and the trustee of the trust. So in other words, as soon as you enter the court, you're guilty because you're dead. Remember the Triple Crown. You're guilty insofar as you can't have property. You're dead. You can't have your own body because you lost it. You're dead. You don't have a soul, so you're a product. You're an object. You're dead. Okay? So you have no rights in court. Your representation is simply what the judge wants to say, unless you take him to task on the fact that he is made the trustee by the county clerk, or the court clerk rather. And he can't be the trustee and the beneficiary because they like to then put the trustee on you by asking you your name. Well, guess whose name is the all caps name?
That's
the one that represents the trust.
right.
Who is representing the trust? Who does the county or does the court clerk, who is the trustee, give the trusteeship to? The judge.
The judge, yes.
So
Not
the
you.
name
Right.
is actually the judge.
Hmm.
State your name for the record. Judge, you are the name, are you not?
Wow.
And then you can go further.
Because they own my all caps name, and that's what yeah.
But you never had an all caps name. Since when do you ever sign in
yeah.
all caps? Since when do you, that's identity theft.
Right.
Purely said, it's identity theft. You are not that thing. You never were. Okay?
Yeah.
So really that's the point. You're being confused with this, and if you accept it, they see it as a tacit agreement. They're always trying to get a tacit agreement for you. You can always just say, I do not agree to contract. 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 If that's the only thing you could do it. And by trust laws, they can't do anything because you don't agree to contract, and you are very well.
Never say I understand, right?
Well, understand means literally to stand under, meaning you recognize them as over you.
Right. And that's why they ask at the end of reading you a Miranda right, they ask you if you understand. And if you say I understand, that's when they got you, right?
Well, there are many ways that they get you. Remember, tacit agreements could be everywhere. Once you pull down the glass of your window, that's a tacit agreement. You're recognizing them speaking to you. Okay. Once you let them throw anything into the car, that's a tacit agreement right there, right? But the whole thing is based on fraud. So whether there is a tacit agreement or not, it was not disclosed.
Right.
So therefore, all you have to say is that it is not disclosed. And if they bring you into the courtroom, great, because guess what?
Yeah, you're going to keep saying the same thing.
Or you just call it what it is. Are you the trustee of the trust you are creating? And then you direct and point to the court of the clerk. Are you the one that appointed the judge, the trustee of this trust you're creating? I would like to know the nature of you. Judge, identify yourself. Who are you? Are you the trust? Court clerk, who are you? Are you the one that made him the trustee? Prosecutor, he's trying to be the trustee and the beneficiary at the same time. See, you can't by trust laws.
Yeah. How many people know this? Not very many. You really have to know. You really have to know this to go into a court and win this.
But the easiest way out of it is always every single thing you say, just say, I do not understand, because they're speaking a different language here.
Right.
They're tricking. It's all about deceit. It's
I do not understand. The keywords are I do not understand and I do not consent, right?
I do not contract, right?
I do not contract. All right.
It's the same thing though. I do not consent. I do not contract. You're not.
I think we need to do another interview on what to do in a courtroom.
Well,
That's for another time.
You have many more capable people for that than I.
Yeah. Okay, well, what you've done today has been remarkable. It's been extremely helpful, and I think people will deeply appreciate it. And I hope that everyone is encouraged to follow through with the State Assembly. Again, that's the Assembly, the State
The
Assembly, American
American States Assembly.net.
AmericanStatesAssembly.net. Follow through and help us all get out of this fraud that's been perpetrated on us and made us really slaves to the Matrix. Again, go watch the Matrix now that you've heard this information, and you'll see how accurate that movie really is.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Xavier. Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us today, folks, and join us with our other interviews. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.